Ambassador Marcus Chen stood in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, his heart pounding in his chest. The massive dome above him showed the stars of 1,000 worlds. Around him sat representatives from 47 different alien species. Some looked like giant insects, others were made of living crystal. A few were just clouds of gas in containment suits, but all of them were staring at him with the same expression. Pity. He didn't want their pity. He wanted answers. "This is a mistake," Marcus said, his voice echoing in the chamber. "Humanity has served the Council faithfully for 50 years. We've shared our technology. We've defended Council space from raiders. We've opened trade with dozens of species. Why are you doing this?" The Velkari Chancellor sat on the highest platform. Her species was old, so old that they claimed to have been traveling the stars when Earth was still covered in ice. She had 6 arms and skin that shimmered like oil on water. When she spoke, her voice came through a translator that made it sound like wind chimes. "Ambassador Chen, please understand. This is not personal. It is simply necessary." "Necessary?" Marcus felt anger rising in his throat. "You're stripping us of everything we've built. Our trade routes, our colony rights, our defense networks. You're taking it all and giving it to your people for safekeeping. How is that necessary?" One of the other ambassadors, a Threxian with too many eyes, clicked his mandibles. "Young Chen, your species expanded too quickly. You claim too many worlds. You developed new technologies too fast. The Council must maintain balance." "Balance?" Marcus looked around the chamber. "Or control. We followed every rule. We respected every treaty. And now you punish us for being successful?" The Chancellor raised one of her hands. The gesture meant silence in Velkari culture. "The decision has been made. The recalibration protocol will begin immediately. Humanity is suspended from Council membership for a period of no less than 20 years. During this time, all human vessels are restricted to your core systems. Beacon buoys have already been placed around human space. If you cross them, you will be fired upon." Marcus felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. "You're building a cage around us." "We prefer to call it a boundary," the Chancellor said. Her tone was cold, matter-of-fact. "You will have time to reflect on your place in the galaxy, to learn patience, to understand that the old ways exist for good reasons." "This is wrong," Marcus said. He looked at the other ambassadors, searching for support. A few looked away. Most just stared back with blank expressions. Only the Korvax matriarch, an old ally of humanity, seemed troubled. But she said nothing. The Chancellor stood. When she did, everyone else stood too. It was over. The meeting was done. "Human delegation, you have 6 hours to leave Zentara Prime. I suggest you use that time wisely." Guards appeared at the doorways, not pointing weapons, not yet, but their message was clear. "Get out." Marcus and his team walked through the corridors of the Council building. They had walked these halls for decades. Now they felt like the walls of a prison. Other ambassadors passed them, but no one met their eyes. No one said goodbye. In the shuttle back to their ship, Marcus sat in silence. His second-in-command, a young woman named Lisa Park, finally spoke. "Sir, what do we do?" Marcus looked out the window at Zentara Prime below. It was beautiful. A world of silver towers and green parks. Humanity had helped build some of those towers. Human engineers had designed the new water systems. Human doctors had cured the plague of 2321 that would have killed millions of Velkari. And this was their thanks. "We go home," Marcus said quietly. "We tell Earth what happened. And then," he paused, "then we see what they decide." The trip back to Earth took 3 weeks through normal space lanes. Marcus spent most of it writing his report. The words came hard. How do you tell your people that they've been betrayed by those they trusted? How do you explain that everything they worked for has been taken away? When they finally reached Earth, Marcus went straight to Geneva. The Unity Government building stood at the edge of Lake Geneva, a symbol of humanity's union after the contact wars. Inside that building, the leaders of humanity's major nations made decisions together. Now they would face their biggest challenge yet. The emergency session started at midnight. Marcus stood before the assembled leaders and told them everything. He showed them recordings of the council meeting. He presented the documents that stripped humanity of their rights. He explained about the restriction beacons and the quarantine. When he finished, there was silence. Then General Sarah Okonkwo stood up. She was the head of the Earth Defense Forces, a tall woman with gray hair and scars from a dozen battles. She had fought the Krellian raiders at the Battle of Europa. She had commanded the defense of New Terra during the Swarm invasion. She did not scare easily, but Marcus could see the anger in her eyes. "Let me make sure I understand," Sarah said slowly. "The council waited until we had invested 50 years into their system. They waited until we had moved millions of colonists to worlds they approved. They waited until we had integrated our economy with theirs. And then they pulled the rug out from under us." "Yes, General. And these restriction beacons. How many?" 247. "They form a sphere around all of human space. Any ship that crosses the boundary gets targeted by automated defense platforms. We tested it. They don't warn you. They just fire." The Prime Minister of the European Federation, an older man named Klaus Werner, shook his head. "This is insane. We'll be trapped. Our colonies in the border systems will be cut off from resources. Millions could die. That's the point," Marcus said bitterly. "They want us to come crawling back, begging for mercy. They want us to accept whatever terms they offer, no matter how unfair." "The hell we will," Sarah said. She looked around the room. "With respect to the council, we have options." "What options?" someone asked. "If we attack the beacons, they'll call it an act of war. The entire council fleet will come down on us," Sarah smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Who said anything about attacking?" "Mr. Ambassador, I need to show you something." "All of you, actually. It's been classified until now, but I think the situation has changed." She pulled up a holographic display. It showed a map of the galaxy, with human space marked in blue and council space marked in green. But there were other colors too. Red lines that seemed to cut through space at odd angles. "What are those?" Marcus asked. "Subspace ruptures," Sarah said. "Unstable corridors in the fabric of space-time. The council knows about them. They mapped some of them centuries ago, but they declared them too dangerous to use. Ship after ship was lost trying to navigate them, so they banned all research into the phenomenon. But we didn't stop researching," Marcus said slowly, understanding dawning. "Correct. For 30 years we've been mapping these ruptures. We've been studying them. And for the last 10 years, we've been developing a drive system that can use them. We call it slip drive." Another display appeared. It showed schematics of a new type of engine. Marcus was no engineer, but even he could see it was revolutionary. "How far along is this?" the Prime Minister asked. "We have working prototypes. We've done small-scale tests. The success rate is about 60%. 60%? Someone gasped. "That's a 40% failure rate." "Yes," Sarah said calmly. "But consider what success means. These ruptures bypass normal space entirely. A journey that takes 3 weeks through normal lanes could take 3 days through a rupture. And more importantly, these ruptures exist outside council space. They lead to regions of the galaxy the council has never explored." Marcus looked at the map again. The red lines formed a network, and many of them led away from council space entirely, out into the dark areas marked as unexplored. "You want us to leave," Marcus said. "I want us to have a choice," Sarah replied. "The council expects us to stay here and suffocate. They expect us to beg. Instead, I propose we disappear. We use the slip drives to reach new territories. We establish colonies beyond council reach. We build our own empire free from their control." "It's incredibly risky," the Prime Minister said. "So is staying here and hoping the council changes its mind," Sarah shot back. "At least my way, we control our own destiny." The debate went on for hours. Some argued for caution. Others wanted to petition the council for mercy. But Marcus could see the tide turning. Sarah had given them hope. She had given them a plan. Finally, just before dawn, the vote was called. The result was close, but clear. Humanity would activate Operation Prometheus. Marcus didn't go home. Instead, he went to the observation deck at the top of the Unity building. He stood there as the sun rose over Lake Geneva, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Lisa Park found him there an hour later. "Sir, the General wants to see you. She's gathering the team." "Team?" Marcus turned to look at her. "Operation Prometheus team. She wants you to lead the diplomatic side, making contact with other species out there, building alliances." Marcus thought about the council, about the betrayal, about the Chancellor's cold eyes. Then he thought about the red lines on the map, leading to unknown worlds and new possibilities. "Tell the General I'm in," he said. "And Lisa? Stop calling me sir. That title belonged to my role as Council Ambassador. That life is over. Just call me Marcus," she smiled. "Yes, Marcus. One more thing. The General asked me to give you this." She handed him a small badge. It was simple, just a silver star against a black background, the symbol of the new human fleet that would venture into the unknown. Marcus pinned it to his chest. Behind him, the sun continued to rise. A new day, a new beginning. Somewhere out in space, the Council thought they had won. They thought humanity would break under the pressure. They were wrong. The betrayal had been meant to destroy humanity's spirit. Instead, it had done something far more dangerous. It had set them free. In a classified facility orbiting Neptune, engineers were already preparing the first slip-drive ships. In universities across Earth and the colonies, scientists were running final calculations. In military bases on Mars and the Moon, soldiers were volunteering for the most dangerous mission in human history. The Council had betrayed humanity. Now humanity would show them the price of that betrayal. Operation Prometheus was in motion, and nothing would ever be the same again. 3 months had passed since the Council's betrayal. In the Grand Chamber on Zentara Prime, the Valkyrie Chancellor reviewed reports from her intelligence network. Everything was going according to plan. The human colonies on the border worlds are struggling, her aide reported. Food shipments are down. Medical supplies are running low. They cannot sustain themselves without access to Council trade lanes. Good, the Chancellor said. How long until they petition for readmission? Intelligence suggests within 6 months. Perhaps less if we apply more pressure. The Chancellor nodded, satisfied. She had done this before, decades ago, with the Narek species. They had also expanded too quickly, grown too ambitious. A few years of isolation had taught them their place. Now they were grateful for any scraps the Council threw their way. Humanity would learn the same lesson. There is one odd thing, the aide said hesitantly. We've lost contact with several human vessels. Trade ships mostly, but a few military scouts as well. They simply had disappeared. Disappeared? Yes, Chancellor. They were tracked entering human space. Then all signals stopped. No distress calls. No debris, nothing. The Chancellor waved a dismissive hand. Probably a malfunction in their tracking systems. You know how unstable human technology can be. Focus on the important matters. When the humans come begging, I want our terms ready. But the disappearances continued. Over the next month, 47 human ships vanished from the Council's tracking systems. Then the humans stopped using the approved space lanes entirely. Every vessel that the Council could track was pulling back, staying deep within the quarantine zone. They're hiding, the aide suggested, probably consolidating their forces. Preparing for the inevitable collapse, the Chancellor agreed. It made sense. Any day now a human delegation would arrive asking for mercy. But the delegation never came. Far from Zentara Prime, beyond the Council's eyes and ears, something else was happening. In a secret facility hidden in the Kuiper Belt, far from Earth and far from prying sensors, Operation Prometheus had begun in earnest. Admiral James Torres stood in the command center, watching the main display. He was a veteran of the contact wars, a man who had seen humanity's first encounters with alien species. Some had been peaceful. Many had not. He had learned long ago that in the galaxy you could only rely on yourself. Status? He asked. Dr. Yuki Tanaka looked up from her console. She was young for someone in charge of such an important project. Barely 40, but she was the best physicist humanity had. Her research had made the slip drive possible. We're ready for the first full-scale test, she said. 12 ships fully crewed, fully supplied. Each one will attempt to navigate a different subspace rupture. If it works, they should emerge on the far side of Council space. And if it doesn't work, Yuki's face was grim. Best case, they get thrown back into normal space somewhere random. Worst case, the ships break apart at the molecular level. There's also a scenario where they end up scattered across multiple dimensions, but let's not think about that. 40% failure rate, Torres muttered. Those are terrible odds. They're the best we have, Yuki replied. Sir, the crews know the risks. Every single person on those ships volunteered. They understand what's at stake. Torres looked at the display again. 12 ships floating in the darkness. The best humanity had to offer. Each one carried a crew of 50. 600 lives riding on a theory and a prayer. But what choice did they have? Stay trapped in the Council's cage? Wait for starvation and surrender? No, humanity didn't work that way. Open a channel, Torres said. All ships. The communication officer nodded. Channel open, sir. Torres took a deep breath. This is Admiral Torres. In a few minutes, you're going to do something no one in the Council has dared to do in centuries. You're going to navigate the subspace ruptures. The Council calls them death traps. They banned all research into them. But we're not the Council. We don't accept limits just because someone tells us something is impossible. He paused, looking at the faces on his screens. Young and old, men and women, people from every nation on Earth and every colony in human space. Each of you volunteered for this mission. Each of you knows the risks. And each of you represents the best of what humanity can be. Today we take the first step into a new era. Today, we prove that we don't need the Council's permission to reach for the stars. He straightened. Good luck. Godspeed, and see you on the other side. Torres out. The channel closed. For a moment, there was silence in the command center. Then Yuki spoke. Ships are activating their slip drives. Subspace ruptures opening in 3, 2, 1. On the display, the 12 ships seemed to stretch like images being pulled on rubber. Space around them twisted into impossible shapes. Colors that had no name flickered at the edges of perception, and then they were gone. The command center erupted into activity. Technicians monitored readings. Scientists recorded data. Everyone was shouting numbers and coordinates. Torres stood still, watching the empty space where the ships had been. Now came the hard part. Waiting. The calculations said it would take 3 days for the ships to traverse the ruptures. 3 days of not knowing if the crews were alive or dead. 3 days of wondering if they'd just sent 600 people to their deaths. Torres didn't sleep that first night. Or the second. On the third day, he was still at his post, drinking his 5th cup of coffee, when the sensors started beeping. Contact. Someone shouted. Multiple contacts emerging from subspace. Torres was on his feet instantly. How many? Counting now. Sir, I have 11 ships. 11 confirmed ships, 11, not 12. Torres felt his heart sink. Casualties? Checking. All 11 ships are intact. No damage, no casualties. Sir, they're hailing us. Put them through. The face that appeared on the screen was Captain Rebecca Stone, commander of the exploration vessel Wanderer. She was grinning like a lunatic. Admiral Torres, permission to report mission success? Granted. Tell me everything, sir, it works. It actually works. The slip drive navigated the rupture perfectly. We traveled over 7,000 light-years in 3 days. That would take months through normal space lanes. We emerged in a region completely outside Council territory. And, Admiral, her grin got wider. You need to see what we found. What about the 12th ship? Torres asked. Stone's smile faded. The Horizon, sir. They made the jump with us, but something went wrong. We detected a massive energy spike. Then they were just gone. No wreckage. No signals. The rupture must have destabilized. Torres closed his eyes. 50 people. 50 good people who had volunteered, who had believed in the mission. We'll honor them, he said quietly. Now show me what you found. Stone's image was replaced by sensor data. Torres leaned forward, not quite believing what he was seeing. Planets, dozens of them. Habitable worlds with water and oxygen and vegetation. And not just natural planets. There were structures, too. Massive orbital stations. Cities on the surface. Technology. But no life signs. No heat signatures, nothing. Ghost worlds, Stone said, her voice full of awe. Someone built all of this and then just left. The technology is old, Admiral. Millions of years old. But some of it still works. We found one of their data cores and managed to interface with it. They called themselves the Architects. The Architects, Torres repeated. He'd heard legends about ancient races that came before the Council. Every spacefaring species had stories about the precursors, the ones who built the hyperspace lanes and left behind ruins on 1,000 worlds. But most scientists thought they were myths. There's more, Stone said. We're not the only ones out here. We detected another ship, not human design. When we hailed them, they responded. They call themselves the Kresh. They've been hiding in this region for over 3 centuries. Hiding from what? The Council, sir. Apparently, we're not the first species they've betrayed. Torres felt a chill run down his spine. Get back here, Captain, and bring any data you can on these Architects. I need to brief Earth Command. Yes, sir. One more thing. The Kresh want to talk. They say they've been waiting for someone else to escape the Council's control. They want to meet, then set up the meeting. Torres out. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. The successful ships returned and shared their data. Engineers studied the slip drive performance and made improvements. The failure rate dropped to 35%, then 30, then 25. More ships were built. More crews were trained. And quietly, carefully, humanity began to disappear from council space. The colonies on the border worlds were evacuated. Cities that had stood for decades were abandoned. Millions of people packed up their lives and moved deeper into human territory, to staging points where they could board ships equipped with slip drives. The Council's intelligence network noticed, of course. But they misinterpreted the data. They thought humanity was collapsing, retreating to Earth as their colonies failed. The Chancellor was pleased. The plan was working perfectly, but Marcus Chen, now working as humanity's chief diplomat for Operation Prometheus, was meeting with the Kresh leadership on a barren moon, halfway between human space and the architect worlds. The Kresh looked like a cross between lizards and birds, with scales that shimmered in rainbow colors and wing-like appendages on their backs. Their leader, a female named Skritak, regarded Marcus with intelligent eyes. "Your species is brave," she said through a translator, "or foolish. The Council does not forgive those who defy them. They already betrayed us," Marcus replied. "What more can they do? More than you imagine. They crushed my people's rebellion. They scattered us across the stars. Only a few thousand of us survive, hiding in regions like this, afraid to return home." "Then help us," Marcus said. "Help us build something better. An alliance of free species. Strong enough that the Council can't destroy us." Skritak was quiet for a long moment. "You humans are either the bravest species I've ever met or the most stupid. I haven't decided which yet." "Maybe both," Marcus said with a slight smile. "Maybe." Skritak's crest feathers rose, a sign of decision among her people. "Very well. The Kresh will ally with humanity. We will share our knowledge of the Council's tactics and weaknesses, and perhaps together we can find justice." They shook hands, a human gesture that Skritak had learned. As they did, Marcus felt something shift. This was no longer just humanity against the Council. It was becoming something larger. A coalition of the betrayed, the cast aside, the rejected, and they were growing stronger every day. Back on Zentara Prime, the Chancellor received a disturbing report. Several Council scouts had detected strange ships in the Outer Rim, far beyond the normal boundaries of explored space. The ships used technology that didn't match any known species. And when the scouts moved to investigate, the ships vanished into subspace ruptures. "Impossible," the Chancellor said. "No one can navigate those ruptures." "The evidence suggests otherwise," her aide said nervously. "And Chancellor, there's something else. The ships appear to be of human design." "Human? That's ridiculous. The humans are quarantined. They can't possibly have reached the Outer Rim." But doubt was creeping in. The Chancellor ordered more scouts sent out. Over the next month, reports came back from across the galaxy. Strange human ships appearing and disappearing, always at the edge of Council space, always near subspace ruptures, always just out of reach. The humans weren't collapsing. They weren't retreating. They were leaving. The Chancellor called an emergency council session. For the first time in her long life, she felt something she hadn't experienced in centuries. Fear. "We need to know what the humans are doing," she told the assembled ambassadors. "Send ships to their core worlds. Demand explanations. If they violated the recalibration protocol, there will be consequences." But the ships sent to human space found nothing. The border colonies were empty. The trade stations were abandoned, and Earth itself had gone silent, refusing all communications. Humanity had vanished into the dark, and somewhere in that darkness, in a region the Council had dismissed as worthless, humanity was building an empire. 1 year had passed since humanity disappeared from Council space. In that time, the galaxy beyond the Council's borders had been transformed. Captain Rebecca Stone stood on the bridge of the Wanderer, looking out at New Haven. A year ago, this planet had been empty, just another lifeless rock orbiting a distant star. Now it was home to 500,000 humans in Kresh, working together to build something new. Cities were rising from the plains, farms covered the valleys. Orbital stations hung in the sky above, mining asteroids and refining resources. And everywhere, human and Kresh engineers were studying the ruins left behind by the architects. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Dr. Tanaka," her communications officer said. "She's at the main architect facility. She says it's urgent. Put her through." Yuki's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired but excited, the way she always did when she made a breakthrough. Rebecca, I need you to come to Site Alpha immediately. We've found something. Something big, define big. Come see for yourself. Trust me, you won't believe it unless you see it. 20 minutes later, Rebecca was standing in the heart of an architect facility. The structure was massive, carved from a single mountain of black crystal. The walls glowed with soft blue light, responding to the presence of visitors. Yuki led her through corridors filled with alien technology. Machines that hummed with power despite being millions of years old. Displays showing star charts of galaxies no human had ever seen. And at the center of it all, a chamber that took Rebecca's breath away. The room was spherical, maybe 100 meters across. Floating in the center was a holographic display showing what looked like a history of the galaxy, civilizations rising and falling, species emerging and going extinct. And through it all, one constant, the architects. We've been translating their records for months, Yuki said. The architects didn't die out. They evolved. They became something beyond physical form, energy beings maybe, or something we don't even have words for. But before they left, they created all of this. She gestured around them. Technology, knowledge, cities, ships. They left it behind for whoever came after them. For worthy successors, Rebecca said quietly. Exactly. But here's the thing. They left tests too. Challenges. They wanted to make sure that whoever inherited their legacy would be ready for it. The council found some of these sites centuries ago, but when they tried to access the technology, it rejected them. The architect systems wouldn't activate, so the council declared these sites off limits and forbade anyone from researching them. But they're activating for us, Rebecca said. Not just for us, for the creche too, for any species that's been betrayed and cast aside by the council. It's like the architects knew this would happen. They built their legacy for the underdogs, not the powerful. Yuki pulled up more data on a nearby console. Look at this. We found 12 more architect worlds in this region. Each one has technology that makes council systems look primitive. Better shields, faster engines, weapons that can cut through any known armor. And that's just what we've figured out so far. There's so much more we haven't even begun to understand. Rebecca felt a chill run through her. Yuki, if we can access all of this, we'll be more powerful than the council. I know. Scary, isn't it? Terrifying, Rebecca agreed. The council betrayed us because they thought we were growing too powerful. If they find out about this, they will find out, Yuki said. Eventually. We can't hide forever. The question is, what do we do with this power when they do? Rebecca didn't have an answer. So she changed the subject. Have you told Admiral Torres? I'm sending him the full report today. But Rebecca, there's something else. Something I haven't told anyone yet. Yuki pulled up a new image. It showed a star chart with a single point highlighted in red. What am I looking at? The architect homeworld. Or what's left of it. It's in the galactic core. Surrounded by radiation and spatial anomalies. Nothing can get close to it. But their records mention something called the Final Repository. A place where they stored their greatest works. Technologies that would be dangerous in the wrong hands. Like weapons? Weapons, yes, but also other things. The records are vague, but they mention something called the Ascension Protocol. A way to evolve beyond physical limitations. To become what they became. Rebecca stared at the image. That's too much power for anyone to have. I agree. But the council won't see it that way. If they learn about this, they'll do everything they can to reach it first. Then we need to make sure we get there first, Rebecca said. Over the next few months, humanity's expansion accelerated. More architect worlds were discovered and colonized. More technology was reverse-engineered and improved. Human ships that once struggled to compete with council vessels were now superior in almost every way. But it wasn't just about technology. The alliance with the creche had opened other doors. Through them, humanity made contact with more exiled species. The Narix, who the council had betrayed decades ago. The Threlian Collective, a hive mind that had been forcibly broken up by council decree. The Silicon Speakers, beings of living rock who had been enslaved to mine ore on council worlds. Each species had a story. Each had been used and discarded, and each was eager to join humanity's coalition. Marcus Chen spent his days traveling between the new colonies, meeting with representatives from these species. Building relationships, forging alliances. It was exhausting work, but necessary. On one such trip to meet the Narix leadership, Marcus found himself in a strange position. He was the one offering hope to a species that had given up. The Narix looked almost human except for their silver skin and the fact that they had no mouths. They communicated telepathically, which took some getting used to. Their leader, whose name translated roughly as Stone Who Remembers, projected thoughts directly into Marcus's mind. Why should we trust you? You are young, naive. The Council will crush you just as they crushed us. Maybe, Marcus said out loud. The Narix could read his thoughts, so there was no point in lying. But we're stronger than you were. We have the slip drives. We have architect technology. And we have something else. We have nothing left to lose. That makes you dangerous, Stone Who Remembers thought. To the Council and to yourselves. True, but it also makes us free. The Council thinks they can control everything through fear and restrictions. They've done it for thousands of years, but they forgot something important. Sometimes the people you push down don't stay down. Sometimes they push back. Stone Who Remembers was quiet for a long time. Then, show me. Show me this architect technology. Show me that you have a real chance. Then we will decide. Marcus took the Narix delegation to the nearest architect facility. He showed them the ships humanity was building. The shields that could withstand Council weapons. The engines that could outrun any pursuit. The manufacturing systems that could build a fleet in weeks instead of years. By the end of the tour, Stone Who Remembers was convinced. We will join you, the Narix leader projected. Not because we believe you will win, but because we would rather die fighting than live as the Council's slaves. It was a grim sentiment, but Marcus understood. Hope was a luxury these species couldn't afford, so he would prove to them that this wasn't just hope. It was a real chance. The coalition grew. 17 species, all united by a common enemy, all working together to build something the galaxy had never seen. A true democracy, where every voice mattered and no one species dominated the others. They called it the Free Worlds Alliance. Back on Zentara Prime, the Council was finally beginning to understand the scope of their mistake. Scout ships sent to investigate the human disappearance had started going missing. Those that returned brought back troubling reports. The Velkari Chancellor sat in her private chambers, reading the latest intelligence summary. Her hands trembled slightly as she turned the pages. Not from age, but from fear. Human ships had been spotted in 17 different sectors, all outside Council space. They were accompanied by vessels from known exile species. The ships used technology that Council analysts couldn't identify. And they were expanding at a rate that should have been impossible. How many colonies? She asked her aide. Our best estimate is 37 major settlements, perhaps 100 smaller outposts, and the number grows every week. In 1 year? They've established that many colonies in 1 year? The slip drive technology allows them to bypass normal travel times, and they're not following our colonization protocols. No environmental studies, no Council approval. They simply arrive at a planet and start building. The Chancellor felt anger rising in her chest. This is unacceptable. They're violating every law we've established. With respect, Chancellor, they're outside our jurisdiction. They're not in Council space. Technically, they're not breaking any laws. Don't be naive, the Chancellor snapped. They're breaking the spirit of the law. They're disrupting the natural order. And they're doing it with help from species we thought we dealt with. The Kresh, the Narix, even the Silicon Speakers. They're building an army. Should we respond militarily? The Chancellor was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she shook her head. Not yet. We need to know more. Send more scouts, find their main bases, learn what they're planning, and contact our allies. If the humans are building a coalition, we need to do the same. But even as she gave the orders, the Chancellor knew the truth. The situation had already spiraled beyond her control. The humans hadn't just escaped. They'd thrived, and now they were a genuine threat to everything the Council had built. On New Haven, Admiral Torres received a message from Marcus. The coalition was complete. 17 species all committed to the cause. It was time for the next phase. Torres called a meeting of the command staff. Yuki, Marcus, Rebecca, and leaders from each of the allied species gathered in the Situation Room. We've done well, Torres said. Better than I dared to hope. But now comes the hard part. The Council knows we're out here. They know we're growing. Soon they'll move against us. We need to be ready. Ready for what? Skritak asked. War? Maybe, or maybe something more subtle. The Council's favorite tactic is isolation. They'll try to cut us off from resources. They'll spread propaganda, turn other species against us. They'll make examples of anyone who helps us. So we strike first, one of the Narek's representatives suggested. We have the technology. We have the numbers. Why wait? Because we're not the council, Marcus said firmly. We don't start wars. We finish them, Torres nodded. Marcus is right, but we do need to send a message. We need to show the council and the galaxy that we're not afraid, that we're here to stay. What do you have in mind? Rebecca asked. Torres smiled. It was the same smile he'd worn before every major battle of his career. We go public. We reveal ourselves. And we invite every species in the galaxy to join us, not to fight the council, but to build something better. A true galactic community based on freedom and equality. They'll call it a declaration of war, Yuki said. Let them. We'll be making our own declaration. The council's rules don't apply to us anymore. It's time the galaxy knew that. The room erupted in debate. Some thought it was too risky. Others argued it was necessary. But in the end, they all agreed. The time for hiding was over. In 90 days, humanity would return to council space, not to beg for mercy, but to announce their independence, and the galaxy would never be the same. 2 years after the betrayal, a single ship appeared at the edge of Zentara Prime's sensor range. It was small, sleek, and broadcasting on all council frequencies. The message was simple. This is the Earth Alliance ship Defiance. We request permission to approach. We have a message for the Galactic Council. The Council's defense fleet immediately scrambled. 50 warships surrounded the human vessel, weapons charged and ready. But the Defiance made no aggressive moves. It simply waited, patient and calm. On the bridge of the flagship, the fleet commander contacted the Chancellor. What are your orders? Should we open fire? The Chancellor stared at the image of the human ship. It was different from the vessel she remembered, sleeker, more advanced. And there was something else. Something her sensors couldn't quite identify. An energy signature that didn't match any known technology. No, she said finally. Let them through. But keep weapons locked on them. If they make any hostile move, destroy them instantly. Yes, Chancellor. The Defiance glided through the fleet, completely unconcerned about the weapons pointed at it. It landed at the main spaceport, and from it emerged a single figure. Marcus Chen. He looked different too. Older, harder, more confident. The man who had stood before the council 2 years ago had been desperate, pleading. This man stood like he owned the world he was walking on. The council assembled quickly. Every ambassador was present. Every species wanted to see what the humans had to say. The chamber was silent as Marcus walked in, his footsteps echoing on the polished floor. He stopped in the center of the chamber, right where he had stood during the betrayal. And he smiled. Hello, he said. Miss me? The Chancellor's voice was cold. Ambassador Chen, or should I say former ambassador, you are aware that you and your species are in violation of the recalibration protocol. You have established unauthorized colonies. You have engaged in illegal trade with exiled species. We've done a lot of things, Marcus interrupted. The chamber gasped. No one interrupted the Chancellor. But we haven't violated any council laws. You see, we're not in council space anymore. We don't use council trade lanes. We don't claim council territory. In fact, we're here to make our position clear. Humanity formally withdraws all claims to council space. We don't need it anymore. The Chancellor blinked, confused. You're surrendering your territorial claims. Surrendering implies we're giving something up. We're not. We're making a choice. Your space, your rules. That's fine. We'll play somewhere else. Murmurs ran through the chamber. This wasn't what anyone had expected. The council had anticipated threats, demands, maybe even an attack. But simple withdrawal? That didn't make sense. If that's all you came to say, the Chancellor said carefully, then this meeting is concluded. You may leave. Oh, I'm not done yet, Marcus said. His smile widened. You see, while we were out there exploring, we learned some interesting things. About the council, about its history, about what you've done to other species over the centuries. He pulled out a small device and placed it on the floor. A holographic display sprang to life, filling the chamber with images, documents, communication records, orders signed by council leadership. The Kresh, betrayed 347 years ago. The Nareks, betrayed 43 years ago. The Threlian Collective. The Silicon Speakers. The Valtorians. The Herex Union. 17 species in total, all subjected to the same recalibration protocol you used on us. Some survived in exile. Some didn't. but all of them were eliminated as threats to council power. The chamber erupted in shouts. Some ambassadors tried to deny it. Others called for Marcus to be arrested, but the chancellor raised her hand for silence, and slowly the noise died down. "These are matters of council security," she said. "They are none of your concern." "Wrong," Marcus said. "They're very much our concern. Because we found those species, we allied with them, and together we've built something new, something better. We call it the Free Worlds Alliance." He pulled up a new image, a star map showing the territory controlled by the Alliance. It was massive, larger than anything the Council had expected. 37 major colonies, 12 architect facilities, over 200 million citizens from 17 species. We have our own economy, our own government, our own military. We don't need the Council's permission to exist. We don't need your approval to thrive. "This is an outrage," someone shouted. "You're building an army." "No," Marcus said calmly. "We're building a civilization. But here's the thing, Chancellor. We're not done. We're going to keep growing. We're going to keep exploring. And we're going to invite every species in the galaxy to join us. Any species that's tired of being controlled. Any species that wants true freedom. Our door is open." The Chancellor stood, her 6 arms trembling with rage. "You dare to come here and threaten us?" "I'm not threatening you," Marcus said. "I'm informing you. The galaxy is changing. The Council's rules don't apply everywhere anymore. And if you try to stop us, if you try to destroy what we've built, you'll find we're much harder to kill than you expected." "We crushed the Kresh Rebellion," the Chancellor hissed. "We scattered them across the stars. We can do the same to you. Maybe. Or maybe things are different now. We have architect technology. We have the slip drives. We have allies you thought were extinct. And we have something else. We have nothing to lose." Marcus looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every ambassador. "I'm giving you 90 days. 90 days to reform the Council. Remove the elder species privileges. Establish true democratic representation. Compensate the species you've betrayed. Do this and we can coexist peacefully. Don't, and we'll show the galaxy exactly what you are. Tyrants who maintain power through fear and oppression." "You're insane," the Chancellor said. "Maybe," Marcus agreed. "But I'm also right. And deep down you know it. This isn't a negotiation, Chancellor. This is advance notice. 90 days. Then the galaxy learns the truth about the Council." He turned and walked toward the exit. Guards moved to block his path, but the Chancellor waved them aside. She wanted him gone. Needed him gone before he said anything else that might undermine Council authority. Marcus reached the door, then paused and looked back. "Oh, and one more thing. We intercepted your spy satellites. We know you've been trying to track our movements. We know you've been planning a military response. So let me save you the trouble. We're not hiding anymore." He pulled up one final image on his device. It showed the locations of a dozen Free Worlds Alliance fleets, all positioned at the borders of Council space. "If you want a war, you'll get one. But I promise you, it won't be the easy victory you're expecting." Then he was gone, leaving the Council chamber in chaos. The Defiance lifted off from Zentara Prime an hour later. Behind it, the Council descended into argument and panic. Some species demanded immediate military action. Others counseled caution. The chamber that had been so unified during humanity's betrayal was now fractured and uncertain. On the Defiance's bridge, Marcus let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. His hands were shaking slightly from adrenaline. "That went well," his pilot said with a grin. "Did it? I just threatened the most powerful government in the galaxy." "Yes, sir, you did." "It was beautiful." Marcus laughed despite himself. "Get us home. The Admiral is going to want a full report." But before they could activate the slip drive, sensors detected movement. The Council fleet was breaking formation. Several ships were moving to pursue. "Should we run?" the pilot asked. "No," Marcus said. "Let them follow. Time for them to see what we can really do." The Defiance accelerated and the Council ships gave chase. They were fast, the best the Council had, but the Defiance was faster. It danced around their weapons fire, shields easily absorbing anything that hit, and when it reached the nearest subspace rupture, it didn't slow down. It dove straight in. The Council ships tried to follow but pulled back at the last second. They couldn't navigate the ruptures. They could only watch as the human ship vanished into impossible space, leaving them behind. The pursuit commander sent a report back to the Chancellor. "They're gone. We cannot track them through the ruptures. The Chancellor read the report in her office alone. For the first time in centuries, she felt old, tired. The galaxy she knew, the galaxy she controlled, was slipping away. She activated the Council's military network and began issuing orders. If the humans wanted war, they would get it. The Council had crushed rebellions before. This would be no different. But even as she gave the orders, doubt crept in. The humans had been quiet for 2 years. What had they been doing all that time? What other surprises did they have waiting? She was about to find out. Phase 2 of Operation Prometheus had begun. All across the galaxy, on 1,000 Council worlds, people woke up to find their communication networks hijacked. Every screen, every display, every holographic projector showed the same thing. A message from the Free Worlds Alliance. It started with images, Council documents showing the betrayals, orders to destroy the Kresh homeworld, plans to enslave the Silicon speakers, communications revealing how the Council had manipulated elections, assassinated leaders, and crushed any species that grew too powerful. Then came testimony. Survivors from the betrayed species telling their stories, families torn apart, worlds destroyed, civilizations erased from history, and finally an invitation. Join the Free Worlds Alliance, live free. Build your own future. The broadcast lasted for 30 minutes. Then it ended, and normal programming resumed. But the damage was done. On 100 worlds, protests erupted. People demanded explanations. They wanted to know if the documents were real. They wanted to know what their governments had done in their names. The Council's response was swift. They declared the broadcast illegal propaganda. They arrested those who tried to discuss it. They shut down communication networks and imposed curfews, but it was too late. The truth was out, and the galaxy would never look at the Council the same way again. In her office on New Haven, Yuki Tanaka watched the chaos unfold with satisfaction. "How long until the Council traces the broadcast back to us?" Rebecca asked. "They already have," Yuki said. "But it doesn't matter. We didn't just hack their networks from one location. We've been infiltrating their systems for 2 years. We have backdoors in every major Council computer. We can broadcast whenever we want." "They're going to retaliate," Rebecca said. "Let them try," Yuki replied. "We're ready," and they were. All across Free World space, fleets prepared for battle. Weapons were charged. Shields were raised. Millions of soldiers stood ready to defend what they had built. The Council had betrayed humanity, thinking it would break them. Instead, it had forged them into something stronger, something the galaxy had never seen before, a species with nothing to lose and everything to fight for. The countdown had begun. 87 days remained until Marcus's ultimatum expired. 87 days for the Council to decide its fate, war or peace. Reform or destruction, the choice was theirs. But the time for control was over. The galaxy was changing whether the Council liked it or not. The galaxy burned with tension. 3 months had passed since Marcus's ultimatum, and the deadline was approaching fast. In that time, the Council had not reformed. Instead, they had prepared for war. The Velkari Chancellor stood before the assembled Council fleet, the largest military force ever gathered in galactic history. 3,000 ships from 47 species, all united under Council command. It was a show of power meant to crush any resistance. "The human rebellion ends today," the Chancellor declared. "We will destroy their colonies. We will scatter their fleets, and we will remind the galaxy why the Council has ruled for 10,000 years. Because we are strong, because we are united, because we are inevitable." The fleet cheered. The admirals saluted. And the massive armada began its journey toward free world space. But they didn't know what was waiting for them. On New Haven, Admiral Torres watched the Council fleet approach on long-range sensors. His face was calm, but his mind was calculating 1,000 scenarios at once. "They're bringing everything," his tactical officer said. "Every major warship in Council space. If we meet them head-on, we'll be outnumbered 3-1. Then we won't meet them head-on," Torres said. "Execute Plan Omega." Across Free World's territory, fleets received their orders and began to move. But they weren't moving toward the Council forces. They were moving away, dispersing into a dozen different directions, each using slip drives to vanish into subspace ruptures. The Council fleet arrived at the Free World's border expecting a battle. Instead, they found nothing. Empty space, abandoned defense stations, not a single enemy ship in sight. "Where are they?" the Council fleet commander demanded. "We're not detecting any hostile vessels, sir," It's like they just disappeared. The Chancellor received the report with confusion. This makes no sense. They threatened us. They challenged us. And now they run? Perhaps they realized they couldn't win, her aide suggested. Perhaps this was all a bluff. The Chancellor wanted to believe that. But something felt wrong. The humans had been too confident, too prepared. They wouldn't just vanish without a reason. Then the reports started coming in. A council supply depot near the border had been destroyed. Not by direct attack, but by sabotage. Someone had planted explosives weeks ago, and they had just been triggered. A major shipyard in council space reported all its manufacturing computers had been wiped. Years of design data, gone in seconds. Communication networks across the council began experiencing random blackouts. And then, on 17 different council worlds, something impossible happened. Free Worlds Alliance ships appeared. Not in orbit, not in the outer system, but directly in the atmosphere, hovering over major cities. They weren't attacking. They weren't threatening. They were just there, broadcasting a message on all frequencies. The message was simple. Each ship carried representatives from species the Council had betrayed. The Kresh, the Narix, the Silicon Speakers, and others. They weren't soldiers. They were civilians, families, survivors, and they were telling their stories directly to the people below. "My name is Skritak," the Kresh leader broadcast. 347 years ago, the Council came to my world. They promised us prosperity. They promised us peace. Instead, they took our resources, enslaved our people, and when we resisted, they tried to exterminate us. The few thousand of us who survived have been hiding ever since, until humanity found us, until they gave us hope again. Similar broadcasts played on every world, stories of betrayal, stories of survival, stories that the Council had tried to bury for centuries. The populations below listened. Some believed, some didn't, but they all heard, and they all began to ask questions. Why had the Council never mentioned these species? Why were the records sealed? What else had been hidden from them? The Chancellor ordered the fleets to attack the broadcasting ships, but before they could reach them, the ships vanished back into subspace ruptures. And new ships appeared over different worlds, continuing the broadcasts. It was a propaganda war, and the Council was losing. But the military situation was even worse. The main Council fleet had pushed into Free World's territory, but they found nothing to fight. The colonies they targeted were already evacuated. The bases they attacked were empty. And every time they tried to pursue the Free World ships, those ships would vanish into the ruptures, only to reappear somewhere else entirely. The Council forces were chasing ghosts. "This is impossible," the fleet commander raged. "We have the superior force. We should be crushing them." "We can't crush what we can't catch," his tactical officer replied. And then Captain Rebecca Stone made her move. She had been waiting near the Council homeworld of Velkar with a small strike force. While the main Council fleet was far away chasing shadows, she and her ship slipped past the defenses using Architect's stealth technology. They didn't attack the planet. Instead, they broadcast a message directly to the Velkari people, a message showing their own Chancellor's orders, documents proving how she had manipulated their government, how she had enriched herself while regular Velkari suffered, how she had started wars just to maintain her power. The Velkari people had always trusted their leaders, but now they saw the truth, and they were furious. Riots broke out in the capital city. The military, divided in loyalty, refused to fire on their own people. And the Chancellor's government began to collapse from within. Similar operations played out across Council space. Not invasions, but revelations. The Free Worlds Alliance wasn't trying to conquer the Council. They were trying to free it, and it was working. 15 days into the war, the turning point came. The Korvax, the second most powerful species in the Council, made an announcement. Matriarch Selen, their leader, appeared on all Council channels. "For 2 years I have watched the humans with interest," she said. "I voted against their betrayal, but I was outvoted. I hoped the Council would learn from its mistakes. Instead, we have learned nothing. We have become exactly what the humans accused us of being, tyrants who maintain power through fear." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Therefore, effective immediately, the Korvax Confederation withdraws from the Galactic Council. We will no longer lend our ships to this unjust war, and we call upon all species who value freedom to do the same." The announcement sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The Korvax were one of the founding members of the Council. If they were leaving, everything was falling apart. Within hours, 6 more species announced their withdrawal from the Council. Within days, it was 12. The great alliance that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years was crumbling. The Council fleet began to fall apart. Ships refused orders. Crews mutinied. Some vessels simply turned around and went home, unwilling to fight for a cause they no longer believed in. The Velkari Chancellor watched her empire collapse around her. In desperation, she ordered her personal guard to arrest the dissenting ambassadors. She declared martial law. She threatened to destroy any world that defied the Council. But it was too late. The people had seen the truth. They knew what the Council had done, and they would not accept tyranny anymore. Admiral Torres received the intelligence reports with grim satisfaction. The Council was breaking. But there was still danger. A cornered enemy was often the most dangerous. The Chancellor might order a final, desperate strike, a scorched earth policy to destroy everything she couldn't control. "Sir, we're receiving a communication request," his officer said. "It's from the Chancellor herself. Put her through." The Velkari Chancellor's image appeared on the screen. She looked tired, defeated, but there was still fire in her eyes. "Admiral Torres, I request a meeting. Neutral territory. Just you, me, and Ambassador Chen. Why should I agree to that? Because the alternative is civil war that will tear the galaxy apart. Billions will die. Entire species will be wiped out. Is that what you want?" Torres was quiet for a moment. Then, "Give me the coordinates. We'll be there in 6 hours." The meeting took place on a small moon orbiting a dead star. No strategic value, no resources. Just empty rock in the middle of nowhere. Torres and Marcus arrived first, their shuttle landing near an ancient crater. The Chancellor's ship arrived 10 minutes later. She emerged alone as agreed. They met in the center of the crater. 3 people who held the fate of the galaxy in their hands. "Well," the Chancellor said. "Here we are." The upstart humans and the ancient tyrant. "How poetic." "You could have avoided this," Marcus said. "You could have treated us fairly. You could have kept your word. Could I?" The Chancellor laughed bitterly. "Your species was growing too fast, too ambitious. If I hadn't acted, you would have dominated the Council within a generation. Every elder species saw it. They demanded I do something. So you betrayed us to maintain power," Torres said. "I betrayed you to maintain order. There's a difference. Not to us." The Chancellor was silent for a moment. Then she straightened, some of her old authority returning. "What do you want? My surrender? My head on a platter? The complete dissolution of the Council?" "We want reform," Marcus said. "Real reform. A new government based on democracy and equality. Every species gets a voice. No more elder privileges. No more betrayals. A true galactic community. Impossible. The elder species will never agree." "They don't have a choice," Torres said. "Your fleet is in shambles. Your government is collapsing. Half the Council has already abandoned you. You're done, Chancellor. The only question is whether you go down fighting or whether you help us build something better." The Chancellor looked between them. She could see the determination in their eyes. They weren't bluffing. They would destroy the Council if necessary, but they were offering another option. Finally, she sighed. What would this new government look like? Marcus pulled up a holographic display showing the proposed structure. The Galactic Commonwealth, they were calling it. Elected representatives from every species, term limits for all leadership positions, strict checks and balances to prevent any one species from dominating, and most importantly, protections for the rights of all species, young and old. "It's idealistic," the Chancellor said. "Naive, even. You think all these species will work together peacefully?" "No," Torres said honestly. "There will be conflicts, arguments, compromises we don't like. But it will be better than what we have now, and it gives everyone a chance to build their own future." The Chancellor studied the proposal for a long time. Then she looked up at the stars above them, countless points of light in the darkness. "I've led the Council for 200 years, she said quietly. "I've seen species rise and fall. I've made decisions that saved millions and decisions that killed millions. And I've always believed I was doing what was necessary. But perhaps—" She trailed off. "Perhaps you were wrong," Marcus finished. "Perhaps." The Chancellor lowered her gaze back to them. "Very well. I will support your Commonwealth. I will convince the remaining elder species to accept these terms. But I have one condition. What? I want amnesty. For myself and for the council leadership. No trials, no punishments. We stepped down peacefully and you let us go. Torres and Marcus exchanged glances. It wasn't fair. The Chancellor and her allies had committed terrible crimes. They deserved to face justice. But if pressing charges meant continued war, how many more would die? Agreed, Marcus said finally. But you live in exile. You never hold political office again. And you spend the rest of your life working to repair the damage you caused. The Chancellor nodded slowly. I can accept that. They shook hands, a strange moment of peace between enemies. The war was over. The Council would fall. But from its ashes, something new would rise. The transition took months. The Council formally dissolved and the Galactic Commonwealth took its place. Elections were held. Representatives were chosen. The old guard stepped down and new leaders emerged. Not everyone was happy. Some species felt the Commonwealth was too soft. Others thought it gave too much power to the humans. But gradually, the new system began to work. Species that had been enemies for centuries learned to cooperate. Young civilizations got a voice. Old civilizations learned to listen. The Free Worlds Alliance became the Commonwealth's exploration and defense arm. Their fleets patrolled the borders, protecting all member species. The slip drives were shared with everyone, opening up new regions of space for colonization. And on New Haven, Marcus Chen stood with Admiral Torres and Dr. Tanaka, watching the sun set over the first city built by the Commonwealth. 5 years ago, we were betrayed and left for dead, Marcus said. Now we're helping to lead the galaxy. It's almost hard to believe. Don't get comfortable, Yuki said with a smile. I activated one of the architect beacons last week, the one near the galactic core. And? Torres asked, and it responded. There's a message. Apparently everything we've been through was just the first test. The architects left behind something called the final repository. Advanced technology beyond anything we've seen. But to access it, we need to pass trials that make the Council look like a warm-up. Of course there's more, Marcus laughed. Because why would things ever be simple? So what do we do? Torres asked. Yuki pulled up a holographic display showing the path to the galactic core. It was dangerous, filled with radiation, black holes, and spatial anomalies that could tear a ship apart. We keep going, she said. We've gotten pretty good at impossible tasks. What's one more? Torres grinned. It was the same grin he'd worn before every major battle of his career. All right then. Let's see what the architects have in store for us. But this time we're not going alone. We're taking a Commonwealth fleet. Humans, Kresh, Narix, Korvax, everyone. Whatever challenges we face them together. Together, Marcus agreed. That's what makes us strong. They stood there for a while longer, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Above them, ships from a dozen species patrolled the skies. On the streets below, humans and aliens walked side by side, building a future no one had thought possible. The Council had betrayed humanity, thinking it would destroy them. Instead, it had unleashed something the galaxy had never seen. A species that refused to accept limits, that turned every obstacle into an opportunity, that inspired others to dream of freedom. The architects had left their legacy for worthy successors. For species that could overcome betrayal and build something better, for those who faced impossible odds and won anyway. Humanity had proven themselves worthy, and now, together with their allies, they would face whatever challenges came next. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly how it should be. Far away in the galactic core, ancient architect systems detected the approaching ships. Protocols that had been dormant for millions of years activated. Tests were prepared. Challenges were set in motion. The next chapter of galactic history was about to begin. And this time, humanity wouldn't face it alone. They would face it with friends, allies, and an entire civilization united behind them. The Council had taught humanity an important lesson. When you betray someone, you don't destroy them. You give them a reason to become stronger than you ever imagined. And humanity had become very strong indeed. The operation had been set in motion 2 years ago. Now it was complete. The galaxy had been freed. The Commonwealth stood strong. And somewhere out in the dark between stars, new adventures awaited. The betrayal had been meant to end humanity's story. Instead, it had just been the beginning.